Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session on 5 tools to increase Kubernetes developer productivity. My name is Saiyam and I am working as Director of Technical Evangelism at Civo. I'm a CNCF ambassador. I'm CK, CK certified. You can find me on Twitter at the Saiyam I'm very active talking about cloud native technology. And I also run a YouTube channel, and I am the author of Kubernetes CKS Scenarios book, which is based on Kubernetes CKS certification. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Kunal.
Hey everyone, I'm Kunal. I work as a developer advocate at Civo. I'm also a CNCF ambassador like Saiyam, and I'm a content creator. You can find me on YouTube as Kunal Kushwa and on Twitter. So like Saiyam mentioned, the title of our talk is 5 tools to improve Kubernetes productivity. You may be wondering why this talk. So as you can see that over the past few years, Kubernetes has become the de facto orchestration platform, and it has become extremely important that developers have the right set of tools to increase their productivity for development and operations. That's sort of like, we have seen many startups coming out and many companies coming out in the ops section, but we've also seen like many interesting communities and companies forming around the developer section. And at Civo as well, like we are trying to improve the developer experience by making it simple for you to get onboarded to Kubernetes. So the tools that we are going to be sharing today will not only accelerate the development workflow, but also help you debug issues faster. You can improve your productivity, and you can use these tools. We'll also be showcasing a demo for each and every one of those. In addition to that, what these tools are about and what they have to offer, how you can get involved in the community. Speaking of which, in the end, we'll share some of our recommendations for working with and developing with Kubernetes. First tool that we have over here is K9s. So K9s is a terminal-based UI that is used to interact with your Kubernetes clusters. The aim of this particular tool is to make it easier for us to navigate and observe and manage our deployed applications in Kubernetes. K9s also continually watches Kubernetes for any changes and offers any commands to interact with your resources. So you can track in real-time activities of the resources that are running inside your Kubernetes cluster, and it can handle both the Kubernetes resources and as well as the custom resources. You can also track real-time cluster metrics such as resources like pods and containers and nodes, so on and so forth.
So let's look at K9s in this particular demo. And I already have K9s installed on my machine. You can see different install mechanisms with respect to the OS that you're using. I also have already a cluster created, which is based on Civo Kubernetes K3s. So you can see the cluster is up and running. Now, in order to kind of open the K9s UI in the terminal, so how it will be, you just have to type K9s. And you can see we have some of the things over here, like what is the context, what is the cluster, K9's version, you can, so these are the nodes. Now you can press C to coordinate a node, D to describe the node. So I'm on one node, I have described the particular node, escape to go back, colon to type more commands. For example, I type pulse, which is one of the command. So you can see the pulse from the cluster, like how many deployments, replica sets, stateful sets, persistent volumes, and overall short picture of the Kubernetes cluster. Then we can also see X-ray, which we mentioned, and X-ray will give the list of dependencies which are there. So next is X-ray, which is there, like X-ray of pods. You can see the pods and their dependencies which are there. So that is what X-ray does. And if you want to see like the pods, again, colon, and then you do pods. And you can see the pods in the dev namespace. I want all namespace, I'll press 0. So I'll get the pods in all namespace. If I want to go to a deployment, so let's go to deploy. And I have so many deployments which are there. So let's go to one of the deployments and press enter. So you can see the pod which is running. I can even go further and inside, and I can see the logs of that. So I press L. I can see the logs of the past 1 hour by pressing 5, and by pressing 3, I can see the logs in the past 15 minutes.
So the next tool that we're going to talk about is Lens, which is a Kubernetes IDE and dashboard. It's designed for folks who work on Kubernetes on a daily basis, and it offers a lot of functionalities. I use it a lot, and it has definitely improved my efficiency. So as you can see that it's removing the complexity. If you're the type of person who does not like working with the CLI tools and YAML files, for example, so Lens can help you navigate your Kubernetes clusters. Apart from that, and it also offers real-time observability. You can see stats about your clusters, and you can also see many like networking like stats related to networking and about different clusters, be that local clusters or clusters in the cloud. So you can check out the website caselens.dev, and you can check out all the documentation and everything. You can download it for Mac, Windows, or Linux. I'm going to download it for my Mac for Apple Silicon, and once you download and install it, it's pretty straightforward. You'll be greeted with like a dashboard, sort of like this. So here you can see all the catalog, the documentation, and the Slack channel of Lens. If I want to check all my clusters, you can see these are all the clusters that I have. See, Minikube is connected to my Lens right now, and I can pin it. So I've pinned it over here in my sort of like a menu bar for my cluster, like a hotbar. So I just click on this. You can see that I have all the information regarding my cluster over here, right? So you can see information about the cluster like CPU and memory usage. Over here it's mentioned, all the warnings and everything are mentioned. You can check out all the nodes. So currently if it's Minikube, I only have one node, and over here it's mentioned like it's a control plane, version, and everything is mentioned over here. And here you can see that overview of all the Kubernetes objects that are available. So you can see that 31 pods are here, deployments 11, stateful sets, daemon sets, replica sets, and so on and so forth, right? Let's look at pods. So you can see some of the pods running over here. You can also filter out pods according to like the namespace, only the default pods you want to see, or the public pods you want to see, or the system pods you want to see, right? You can also search the pods. You can see etcd. There you go. I'll be able to search the pods. Apart from that, you can also like go into the shell, right? So it's going to connect, and now you're inside the shell. The logs for it, and you can also filter the logs accordingly. So you can check out logs. You can search for the logs over here. It's a logs and shell we already talked about. You can edit it, right? You can edit. Now it's representing you the YAML file, so you can edit this YAML file if you like. And then you can also check out various configurations like config maps. For example, you can see the config map over here. You can also have namespace. I can create my own space and say Kunal demo new. You can create our own namespace, right? You can see all the events available over here, and help charts also mentioned over here. Say a Prometheus stack or something, install it. Then it's gonna install that. You can select it. Say I want to do Kunal demo new. Okay, you can give it a name if you like and install. That's it. So now this resource is successfully created. It also offers your own terminal. So for example, you want to create a new pod or something, you can just go to create resource, and it's automatically going to generate a YAML file for you. So if I want to create a deployment, for example, so here you can see automatically created a YAML file for you, right? You can select the replicas for create, and you can select the template, create and close. Nginx deployment, you can see Nginx deployment is created. So I'm going to go to my dashboard. I'm going to go to Kubernetes. In under 90 seconds, you'll be able to run a Kubernetes cluster. So I'm going to say Kubernetes cluster. I'm going to say Lens demo and existing firewall. Let's do a standard one. You can also select Cilium or Flannel as your CNI. I'm going to select, let's say, Prometheus operator, and you can select 3 regions as of 2nd February 2022. So as you can see, our cluster was created with 30 seconds to spare as well. And I'm going to, let's say, download the kubeconfig file. Cool. So I've downloaded the kubeconfig file, and you can add a new cluster. You can go to File, Add a new cluster, paste it over here, and add cluster. As you can see, Lens demo has been added. I'm going to connect to it. And as you can see, now we're connected with our Kubernetes cluster in Civo. One cool thing I want to show you, if you open the terminal over here, right, you say kubectl version. So you can see this is different, and the one I do over here is different. It's automatically like switching and pointing to the correct API. So you can see over here.
So the next tool that we'll be talking about is Krew. Krew is a package manager for kubectl plugins. Now, as a Kubernetes users, you can definitely find, install, and manage the plugins the easy way once you have Krew on installed on your machines. And as a developer, plugin developer, you can create the plugins and distribute them so that other people can use it. As of today, there are more than 130 plus kubectl plugins which are there. So basically, they help you in your day-to-day activities, because each plugin is created with a specific functionality that the developer has created to solve their own day-to-day operations and problems. And you can easily install that from the list when you list all the Crew plugins, and you can make use of that, because the problems across the Kubernetes cluster which are running across the industries, most of them matches. So if developer A has created some plugin, you can definitely use that via Krew. And so it is basically for both developers and the users. The developers solve some problem, they can distribute that, and as users you can consume that by installing the Krew plugin and using it. So I think I have a few Krew plugins that I always install, and it gives me very handy results, which we'll see in the demo. So in this particular demo, we talk about Krew. Again, Krew is a plugin managed for kubectl, and there are a lot of plugins which are there. You can see there are 180 plugins which are there, and this is the plugin list. So I think I already have the access metrics, but if we have to like install, so it's pretty simple. First we install Krew, and then we do the kubectl Krew install and the plugin name. So for example, kubectl Krew install access metrics. So that is how we install that onto the cluster. You can see it skips because I already have installed it. Now let's look at one of the commands which are there. I want to show you how effective it is. So kubectl get pods. So I have the nginx pod which is running. Let's see the YAML file for that. Kubectl get pods nginx -o YAML. So you can see how big the YAML file is, the metadata section and so many things. But sometimes you don't require any of these things, and you just require a YAML file to take, edit, and then reapply. So there is a plugin which is called Neat. So it removes the clutter from the Kubernetes manifest. So let's try that. So kubectl Neat get pods nginx -o YAML, and that's how simply it gave me the correct YAML file that was required. So I think each plugin has a specific use case which is there. Let's look at one other example. So we installed access metrics. So let's see the kubectl access metrics for the pods, and it will show you the list of all the pods which are there and the service account, and are they able to list, create, update, and delete. So I think that will be the access level metrics for this, for pods and other stuffs. So that solves a particular use case.
So the next tool we're going to look into is called DevSpace. So DevSpace is a client-only open source development tool for Kubernetes. You can build, test, debug applications directly inside Kubernetes using DevSpace. It will also help you in updating your running containers without rebuilding images or restarting your containers. And it also offers unified deployment workflows within your team and across dev, staging, and production environments. It also, it will help you to automate repetitive tasks. So for example, you can use it for image rebuilding and deployment.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting concept because the problem that DevSpace is trying to solve is making the cloud native development easy, so that you can build, you can create or write your code locally, but you can actually see that inside the container. So what is actually happening, and access your services as well locally. So when you basically, if you run a particular program, a Python program or a Go program, you'll be able to run that inside the container with your local file system synchronized between the container and your local file system. The changes you make on the local file system will be synchronized with the containers, and once you run the main application, you'll be able to access that locally as well. And that is what you are able to see on the screen. So you have DevSpace that you have installed. Now you do the DevSpace init, which will be creating the DevSpace YAML file, which you can see on the screen, like DevSpace YAML is highlighted. So that file will be having a specifications of what image is being used, where it has to like take the dependencies from and stuff like that. So it also has like build tools, so it can build the images for Docker using Canico, and other build tools are there. And so it reads the configuration, then build the tools, push to the registries. So whatever registries you are using for storing your artifacts, it will use that, and then use the kube context. So it will ask you to set the Kubernetes context, because that is where it will be deploying a particular pod and giving you the access to the container, where it will be like synchronizing your local file system inside the container. So you can see your dev mode, you have the file sync that will be hot reloading as and when you change. You can see the changes. You have the full control over the terminal and the logs. VS Code, they have a lot of extensions. So you have a debugging via the remote debugger directly into your IDE. So I think that is something very fancy that you get. And let's look at the demo for that. So in this particular demo, we'll be looking at DevSpace. Again, DevSpace has a similar concept of making the cloud native development easy. I already have the CLI installed. So let's go here, and you can see DevSpace. So the first command that we have to run is devspace init. Now, basically, why we have to run devspace init is we need this particular file, which is devspace.yaml. So let's look at this file first. So it has like all the versions, the deployments, which folder we need to deploy to, and the image selectors, the ports that we have to give. So I think all these things are there that we need to kind of configure. Now you must be thinking, how can I actually get this particular file? It's very simple. You do dev space init -3 configure, because I have already generated that. So it tells me what to choose. I'll use kubectl for this scenario, and I'll give the path, which is deploy. So the main container image is Saiyam 911 dev week, and it's based on the Docker file, based on the existing Docker file. Port is 8080. So it already has done a lot of things. Now, so we'll use namespace test, and we'll do dev space dev. It is using the namespace test. It is using the current context demo arg, which is the cluster that we have just created. It is creating the deploying the manifest, which is the deployment and the service from the deploy folder, and it is deploying all the stuffs which are there, and it has already the dev space UI is already available locally. So if I go and press this, I can already see the local UI over here. It has already deployed this application. I can go inside and get a terminal over here, and it's pretty neat, right? I already am having the terminal over here. So pip install flask and Python name py. So it's running. The application is running. So if I go to localhost 8080, I should be able to see the app running. So the app is up and running on localhost, and if we want to kind of change any of the things, we can do it locally. So if I want to change and add 2022, and let's run it again. So I actually changed the title. So you can see the title is Welcome to Developers Week 2022 now. So the last tool that we are going to discuss is Okteto. And Okteto I have been using actually since the pre-days. I have seen it grown, seen the product mature, even the cloud as well. I have seen that grown. It gives you the instant pre-configured environments in the cloud. The vision is same, to make the cloud native development, the Kubernetes native development very easy, so that all the developers, they do not need to know what Kubernetes is. So you can have just a single person who knows the DevOps to create pipelines and create the what you call octeto.yaml file, which you can see on the right, which is there, the name, image, the sync, even that can be generated using the Okteto CLI. After that, all the developers will just do Okteto up, and they'll be getting their environments. That's it. You just get your environment running, up and running, again synced between your local file system and the cloud, and you will be able to synchronize, test, and deploy locally within the container, obviously. So you get that shell to the container. You'll be able to make the changes, deploy, and visualize. Now it offers a couple of additional features, like you can directly integrate it with cloud. So you can switch the context to Okteto Cloud. Okteto Cloud is has a free version as well. It has self-hosted version as well. Like on Civo Kubernetes, you can actually install Okteto Enterprise Edition as a marketplace application, and it is free up to 3 developers. So I think that is pretty fancy. And you can create so Okteto Up creates a bidirectional sync. It auto port forwards and access via the local host, and it's basically Kubernetes deployment is replaced by a development container. So they call it as a development container that will be having your dependency tools plus your whole file system which is there on your local machine. And then Okteto deploy will deploy to the cluster based on the pipeline configuration file that will be present on the machine. So the last image that you see is the actual output of the Okteto up command. And let's look at overall advantages what Okteto brings. So faster development, and you get a real developer environment where you are getting the container with all the developer tools installed in it and your local file system that gets synchronized when you change on your local. So it is replicable. So the development containers actually eliminate the need to install the dependencies, and everything is pre-configured for you. It is deployment independent because Okteto decouples the deployment from the development. So whenever you deploy your application using any of the frameworks, kubectl, Helm, and use Okteto up, they will be installed, and it's very useful when you are kind of deploying the cloud native applications. It works on all the local machines, like on Kubernetes cluster, is available on for Mac OS, Linux distribution, because you can install Okteto on Civo Kubernetes. You have the Okteto CLI, just as the DevSpace CLI. You have the Okteto CLI where you can do all the stuff locally. So I think pretty neat tool. Again, goal of both the tools is to ease out the effort of cloud native development made easy, or the Kubernetes native development made easy. It also has like dependency caching. So Okteto again offers a couple of other things like dependency caching. You have the persistent volume thing, which is there. Then you have auto install, build. So when you are connected to the cloud, the build actually happens on the build instance of the cloud. So those are the instant environments. You can see like how you'll be able to see how instant the environment is given to you on the cloud, and which is also like for developers it is free. And even it has a self-hosted version which you can deploy on Kubernetes. Again, there also you have 3 members who can enjoy all the features which are there for free. So let's see Okteto in action. So in this particular demo, we'll go through Okteto. So I already have Okteto CLI installed on my local system. So it is already installed. Now what I'll do is we will see the Okteto.yaml file first. So Okteto.yaml file can be created using Okteto init command. And Okteto init command will walk you through all these steps of creating. So the name is hello service. It automatically picks up the image Python by detecting the project which is there. Then it creates a sync between the application and then the directory within the container. Then it automatically takes the ports, and this is the place where it caches all your pip installs and stuff like that. So what we are going to do is, I already created this Okteto YAML file. It's very simple to create again using Okteto in it. But what we are going to do is first we'll use the Okteto context. So I already have a cloud account. So this is my Okteto cloud account. It is like the free account that is there, and you can also have a self-hosted version deployed onto Kubernetes from the marketplace. So you can see this is there. If I click on start development, it asks me to use the context. So what I've done is I just have deployed. I already have done the Okteto deploy. I'll tell you how to do that as well. But first, what we have done is Okteto context use. I want to show you the developer workflow over here. So we are using the context on cloud.okteto.com. So that is what we are using at the moment. Now this is where the developer's life cycle will be easy. Now, as a developer, I'll just be typing Okteto opt. That's the only command that I'll be using. So it is activating the development container, attaching the persistent volume, pulling the images, configuring the SSH tunnel to the development container, And on the UI side, you can already see in the backend, there is something happening, and it is synchronizing the files as well. The files are synchronized with this particular context. In my namespace, I got my own namespace, and this is the service, and I am inside my container. If I do ls, I can already see I have all the files which are there in my local system, and this is inside the container. So I can now run, first, like, we'll see if Flask is there. Pip install Flask. Okay, and we will do py. You can see it has started. Now how do we access that? Now let's go back and see here. So it's in development mode, and I already have endpoint which is given to me. So if I click here, boom, we have already deployed the application, and we are doing this in development mode. So 5 tools to increase your developer productivity. Which tool is my favorite? All tools are my favorite tools, actually. So I click submit, and it's working. So what we are going to do next is, let's make some change locally. We can just add some exclamation marks in the end. So that is the hot reloading that has been done. I'll reload it, and you can see, boom. So you can change the context as well by using Okteto context. So let's talk about some recommendations that we think are very useful in our day-to-day experience with Kubernetes. So first is develop on Kubernetes. It is like the Kubernetes way of doing things. Whether you take policies, whether you take operators, everything is in the Kubernetes way going. Then the VS Code extensions, use only that makes you productive. So obviously, like, we have talked a lot of tools. Now you have to choose a single one of them in each of the domains.
Yeah, and speaking of development, if you're writing like a few commands regularly, then you can set up aliases for that, like kubectl get pods. You can say kgp. So accordingly, it's like up to you. It's also going to help you in like your day-to-day workflow, and when you're preparing for your certifications like CKA, CKADs, and so on and so forth. And definitely the tools we mentioned, and my personal favorites like K9s and Lens for faster navigation of your clusters. Do check those out. You can also check out other tools like Rancher, Portainer, and also KubeShop has a tool known as Monocle, which makes it easy for you to manage and debug your Kubernetes manifest files. The demos we presented were hosted on Civo, the cloud native service provider. So you can check out Civo and use it for your own demos, and even to run your workloads in production and even in your day-to-day development. Civo offers blazing fast cluster launch times in under 90 seconds. It's a simplified developer experience, and we also offer transparent pricing with like starting just from $5 a month.
Yeah, so thank you all for listening to this particular session. I hope you enjoyed, and take something out from it, and it helps you in your day-to-day workflow. If you have something, some questions, some suggestions, or you want to share what tools you are using, what plugins you are using that is making your day-to-day life easy, do share that with us. So you can find me on Twitter at Saiyam, and you can find Kunal as well. Both of our Twitter handles are displayed. So make sure you tag us and let us know how you enjoyed the talk, any questions, or any tools that you are using you want to share with us, so that we can also look and check them out.